Social, emotional learning, it's the new wave, where culturally responsive meets innovation.
Hey, Resilient ones. My name is Kristen Hopkins, founder of the Dangers of the Mind Education Fund and creator of Black SEL. I'm a social and emotional expert, curriculum developer, and social entrepreneur who believes in the holistic development of Black youth and adults through culturally responsive and affirming resources. Welcome to the Black SEL podcast, formerly known as Dangers of the Mind. Welcome to Black SEL, Blackity Black, Blackity Black, the social and emotional hub for Black people. Welcome to another episode of the Black SEL podcast. Listen, here at Black SEL, we open up a safe space for Black people to share their experiences, their expertise, be vulnerable, all while highlighting key social and emotional skills. And our goal is to make SEL relevant, tangible, and sustainable in Black communities. So listen, today's guest, I am so over-elated to have this woman here with me today, the Omisade Bernie Scott. Listen, before we get into her, I need y'all to know that this woman speaks volume to me. I am inspired, inspired to have her sitting right here on my couch. For real. Y'all don't understand, okay? So let me read y'all some facts real quick about Miss Omisade. She is a graduate of UNC Chapel Hill, proud mother of 2 sons, and resides in the one and only Bull City, Durham, North Carolina. Omisade knows healing is hard work, and I'm so excited to get into this conversation. It's not always fun or glamorous, but having kindred people who can navigate, which will help you on your journey of menopause. So we're gonna talk about menopause today. This is Black SEL and Black menopause and all the things menopause, okay? These are conversations we're gonna talk about. So listen, we're gonna go in. Omisade's knowledge has given her the ability to create spaces for non-binary Black women and femmes who want to live fully in all ways. She has decades upon decades of experience in nonprofit leadership, philanthropy, and social justice. She is a founding tribe member of SpiritHouse and previously served as a board member of the Beautiful Project, Village of Wisdom, and Working Films. Omisade works is featured on Oprah. Let me say it again. Let me get my throat. Oprah Daily, y'all, okay? Where she highlights the importance of Black women navigating menopause with other women who share their experiences. The creator of the Black Girl's Guide to Surviving Menopause, a multimedia project seeking to curate and share the stories. We love a good storytelling over here. The stories and realities of Black women identified and gender-expansive people. So, welcome to Black SEL.
Blackity black, black, black.
Yes! We love it. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, honey, this was a very exciting invitation to receive at the beginning of the year.
Yes.
So I'm really excited to be
Listen,
here.
we are walking into 2023, all good things.
Yes, all good things.
Listen, all impactful things, right?
Yes.
So tell our listeners just a little bit more. We read the bio and we know that you are all awesome in all ways, but just give us some insight to your journey.
Sure. When I was in undergrad, I thought I was going to go to law school and I thought I was going to have a PR job. And none of that happened. Somebody named Dr. Selene Madison turned me out in undergrad. She pressed into my mind and into my heart the words of Zora Neale Hurston and Toni Morrison and Gwendolyn Brooks and Gloria Naylor and Alice Walker and Ntozake Shange and Sonia Sanchez and Octavia Butler.
Yes.
And I was like 20.
Wow.
And so much of what I learned through this performance studies class I didn't realize that what I was learning was about embodiment. I didn't realize that what I was learning was about justice. I didn't realize that what I was learning was about gender equity or health or reproductive justice or Africana studies. None of those things kind of like made sense to me in that crystal clear way as they do now in retrospect, right? You know, and I know that some of the things that she introduced us to through those stories, through those narratives, through Sula's story, through Janie's story, you know, like all of these different stories wouldn't make sense to me until I had lived life.
Wow.
Right? And so
your lived experiences. Come on.
You know, one of the things that a lot of Southern folk like to say is keep living, daughter.
Keep living.
And I needed to live a little longer for certain stories that have been gifted to me to meet up with my story, for it to resonate and make sense. So I got off track. I was like, I'm not going to go to law school. And I had a really, really short stint in higher education. I worked as an assistant director of undergraduate admissions. And then in 1995, somebody did me a major solid. I was working with a brother named Daryl Lester. He has worked in nonprofits. We've worked at 3 different places together. He's a consultant. And he was like, yo, check it, sis. There's this organization in Durham. I was living in Raleigh at the time.
Oh, you was one of those. You was in Raleigh, but you done came to Durham.
Look, I've been living in Durham since 1997.
Come on, oh, Durham.
No, I had to piece Raleigh out.
Yeah, you had to piece it out.
No hate on Raleigh.
I know, no hate on Raleigh. We love Raleigh.
But he was like, there's an organization in Durham, and they do leadership development for young people who want to work in nonprofits. And you're a really good trainer. I think you'd be down for that. And I was like, okay. So I applied for the job, got the job. And it is literally, the building was in the office was in the Self-Help Credit Union building. And that organization was called Public Allies.
Wow.
And that was the first organization, first nonprofit that I worked for. And we did all of this really intense training with these young people around understanding how change happens, understanding what systemic oppression is, understanding how to do community organizing from an asset-based, not a needs-based, but an asset-based framework.
Wow.
Right? And so we were doing all of this work, and that led me to doing other work in other organizations over the next 25 years. Now we're coming up on, it'll be 30 years in 2 years. So I'm coming up on 28 years of this work, and I still feel like I'm the 27 or 28-year-old coming into that
fire.
Space. Yeah, and you learn a lot. So we got connected with folk in movement space. We learned about racial justice, gender justice, education justice.
Education justice.
And the amazing work that Black SEL does is absolutely a part of that core work, and how we can make sure that our children are protected and don't, end up in the school to prison pipeline.
Come on.
And so I've done that work. So I've been a trainer, an organizer, an advocate, an activist, all these things. And then I also worked in philanthropy and worked as a program officer for a small family foundation. So that gave me a behind the screen view into the philanthropic world. Yeah. And so right now, my work primarily is about how do I ensure, how am I in service of making sure that all Black folk are free. So what I do is really of no consequence, right? Like, people always want to ask you, well, what do you do? Yeah. You say, I could do a whole lot of things, but what am I about? What am I about is all Black folk being free, all Black folk being safe, all Black folk being happy, healthy, healing, joyous, creative, right? All of those things. And so that means I look for opportunities that can alchemize what I want. Yeah. Right? So if I know I want folk to be free, then the work I'm going to do is in service to that.
This is so rich and so good to my soul, and we have to have conversations off camera too about because I just want to sit up under you and just like how you can just lay in someone's bosom and be like, talk to me, because this is like the space that I was in, I had an educational consulting firm for years, and I was on the business side. And actually, before I met Josh, I was doing a lot of philanthropy work. But when I met Josh, it was like, he was like, you are an activist. That's right. You are you should be in this nonprofit space. Right. Like, where's your heart? Yeah. And once I had a nonprofit, but I wasn't really doing anything with it. And once I started Danger My Education Fund, it was like I found my happy space. Sure. also I found my people. Because there was a whole tribe of people that was living for impact, that was living for Black people to be free,
That's right.
and that was living for liberation.
That's right.
And I felt like on this business side, people were just hungry, money, you know, and it was like, like, I don't, it's something about you that my spirit doesn't connect with. But when I get to this side, I was like, ooh, you make me happy. You make me feel good. And so first and foremost, thank you for the work that you've done on this earth.
Sure.
You know, thank you for the path that you've created, because your footprints.
That's humbling.
You know?
I have a friend who used to say, this is our reasonable service for being here on this earth. You know, it's like, what's your reasonable service? And so I think that's reasonable service.
Yeah.
And so it has taught me so much about myself. It has changed the way my relationships happen. It has changed the way I parent.
Yes.
Like, so many things have been impacted in a really profound, potent way because of being inside of this social justice kind of creative space. So I'm grateful. Like, I'm
This is so good.
I don't want to poo-poo or downplay what I think I have offered to the community, but I have been a huge recipient, hugely impacted by this work.
You know, what I say is, we're blessed to be a blessing.
Absolutely.
And so every time we bless somebody else, it's blessing us.
Yeah.
Like, we feel restored, we
I
feel
agree.
renewed.
I agree.
You know, and I believe in that. So let's talk about why you're here.
Okay.
You know, you're here for multiple reasons, but we're specifically want to talk about menopause because I like, this is such a phenomenal episode to me, and I know that our audience is gonna be like just shocked that we're going there, because I wanted to highlight every single profession, every single aspect, because oftentimes when we think of social emotional learning, we only think of it in an educational manner, or we don't apply it to our everyday life. And you know, I had someone on the other day talked about natural hair, and I was like, oh, she was like, your hair is like a plant, girl. If you ain't watering that plant, it ain't gonna grow. If you ain't moisturizing that plant, and I was like, oh, like it checked me, because do we time manage do we use time management skills? Do we use self-discipline? Do we use self-motivation when it comes to our personal, the littlest personal things? And so what got you into being an advocate for menopause? And obviously you've been through it, right? And we'll talk about it, but what really was this is my lane? Because a lot of people, this ain't this is not a big lane that
it's not. It is becoming.
It's becoming. Come on, pioneer. Come on, pioneer.
It's definitely becoming that.
Real.
I feel like we're on the vanguard. Truth be told, my relationship to menopause really kind of came, one, from my personal experience, but this work that unveiled itself or revealed itself to me in 2019, I had no idea this is what I was going to do. I just want to be very honest. At the end of 2018, I made a really bold decision to take a sabbatical from social justice
Come
work.
on.
So that was a really bold move. And
But good for you.
Thank you.
Because sometimes people don't know how to put it down for a second and take
I put it down for a year.
Wow.
I put it down for a year. And
I know that was hard.
Yes, it was very difficult. Wow. My oldest son, Che, encouraged me. He said, Mom, why don't you make this sabbatical a creative sabbatical? And I was like, that's a really good idea. He's like, you're always weaving in creativity into your work. Why don't you do something just for you? Not for who you work for, you know?
And by the way, she got some beautiful, beautiful sons. I done seen it. They're beautiful.
Thank you.
Just beautiful.
Thank you.
God made some beautiful, beautiful black boys.
Some black boys.
Black men.
Yes. Yeah. And so I was like, this is a great idea. Let me think about this. What would I want to do? I love documentary studies. I love documentaries. I love audio documentaries. I love video. I love film. I really love, I'm a nerd in that way. I love listening to stories. And the very first documentary I ever saw was Eyes on the Prize.
Ooh.
And that's when I was an undergrad.
Wow. See, you done got amazing experience from this undergrad.
Look,
shout out to all of your professors.
Shout out to Lee Green. Shout out to Soini Madison.
Everybody don't get these type of experiences.
No, and they pressed it. They were just like, if you're going to be here on this campus, you got to know who you are. We got introduced to so many people.
Wow.
It was amazing. But I wanted to use documentary in some way, shape, or form. I wasn't sure. To document conversations I wanted to have with other Black women.
Yeah.
So just initially, I just want to talk like we talk.
Yep.
Like I wanted to be like, hey, Kristen, you want to have coffee with me? Let's just talk about how you live in your life.
I love it.
How's it going?
The lived experiences.
What's your lived experience? How you taking care of yourself? What are the things that you are kind of grappling with?
Wow.
What are the things you're excited about?
Wow.
That you want to give yourself permission to do?
Yeah.
That kind of thing, but specifically for older women. Because I know that I have experienced a lot of support in my 20s, my 30s, and my 40s. But it's almost as if you fall off a cliff once you hit 40. It's just like, well, you're not learning anymore. You've got it all figured out, which that is absolutely not true. We're not investing in senior leadership, advanced leadership. We're not investing in older people, emerging leaders, yes, mid-career folk, yes. But you're good, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, I want to talk to these other sisters. Like, how are you being supported? Who are your mentors?
Right. How are you navigating?
How are you navigating? Yeah. How are you learning? What's up with you and grief or rage?
Yeah.
Are you having sex? And is it good?
Come on.
Like, I want to know.
I
I wanted to know all of these things. And so I sat down with my producer, my podcast producer, Mariah.
Shout out
Mariah.
Yes, and your podcast.
Yes, thank you. And I said, I want to do this. And she was like, Omi, you could totally do this as a podcast. And I would love to work with you on that. And I was like, okay. And she actually also gifted me the name. She's like, I think you should call it the Black Girl's Guide to Surviving Menopause. I thought that was funny.
Brilliant.
I thought it was funny. I was like, that's funny. You know what? That's it.
That's it.
That's it.
Wow.
And so that first year was really about curating stories and figuring out spaces where we could hold space for stories. So we did the podcast, and then we did 4 in-person events. We did 2 in North Carolina, 1 in Washington, D.C., and 1 in Navasha, Kenya.
Oh, and Kenya?
In Kenya.
Come on.
Yeah. We were there for
Take it international. We love us a good African
We're about to
trip.
do that again. We're about to go full circle. So we're invited to be a part of the Healing Justice Conference. And I was there with my SpiritHouse tribe, with Maya from SpiritHouse. And I asked, is it okay with you all that we have a session around menopause and aging for these delegates? And the people participating in this conference were human rights defenders from across the continent. So Black women working in conflict states, Black women working around sexual assault and domestic violence, Black women working around HIV and AIDS. So they're doing all kinds of work as human rights.
Protect the Black woman at all costs.
Listen, and these are frontline human rights defenders. And so part of what they were doing at this conference around healing justice was talking about, what does it look like for the human rights defender to take care of themselves? How are you taking into context the history, the political history, the cultural history, the political contemporary context, the social context, and taking care of yourself? What does that look like? Because so much is being poured out. So then what that ends up happening is people end up sick. The women who are doing the work end up sick, physically ill, mentally ill. Some of them expedite their own death in a lot of different ways.
Oh gosh.
And some of us are also terrorizing each other inside of these organizations, where all of the trauma, our own trauma, and also the visceral trauma that we're experiencing as human rights defenders, we're bringing it back into the organization, and we're terrorizing our coworkers. And so this healing justice conversation was like, how can we stop doing that? And so we did that there. So we have 4 seasons of the podcast.
Wow. Congratulations on 4 seasons, because I know that's not easy.
It's not. And I know you know.
Listen,
it's not easy. I've learned a lot about sound. I've learned a lot about Murphy's Law.
Listen, and we don't take that lightly. That sound, though.
No,
that sound, because you'll think you think you know sound until you get on the podcast.
Until you get on the podcast, you're like, why is that so tinny? What's going on? Or also, like I have my bracelets on now. My producer would kill me for having on these bracelets.
Oh yeah, and my earrings. I know you probably hear.
Yes.
John probably hears my earrings. I'm
jingle jangle.
But I needed to, I need to have something on my ears.
And just figuring out good places to do conversations. One time we did a whole interview and it didn't record at one piece.
Oh gosh.
It kept dropping every 2 minutes. And we both were in tears.
Oh God, because it was so good.
Because we had interviewed Jackie Shelton Green.
Oh gosh.
And we were at Mama Jackie's house.
No.
And she was dropping like
just
bombs. And we were just like, yes. And then Mariah was like, okay, well, we're getting ready to go. She said, well, let me check on my laptop, make sure everything's good. And she's like, no, 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 no. And we both started crying.
Because we just knew it was like...
But you know what? That was the universe letting us know that conversation was just for y'all.
It's just for y'all. I love that.
You needed that medicine.
Ooh.
She's going to give some other medicine to the folk. So we have figured out that there are 3 or 4 ethoses that ground our work. So the first one is Black radical feminism.
Ooh.
Right? So a lot of people are familiar with the Combahee River Collective and the statement that basically says the work of healing, protecting, elevating, and liberating Black women should start with Black women.
Come on.
That's all.
Wow.
It's not that we don't invite other folk to participate or to partner
But it starts
or
with
to
us.
support or invest. But we get to drive the narrative. We get to drive the work. We get to determine the direction we want to go in, right? And if you want to come along, following our leadership though. Don't up jump the boogie and try to get in front.
Listen.
So that's really important.
That's good.
Very important. The second thing is intergenerational work, which is why you and I are also having this conversation. Because what we are talking about is a life transition that will happen to any person who has a uterus and ovaries.
Wow.
So the fact that it is cloaked in mystery, that is, there's taboo attached to it, is also conflated with aging because it typically happens at a certain time chronologically in your life. You can tell how a community or a society values people by how they take care of their young people and their older people.
Listen, so it's so important. I watched my mom take care of her father and her mother. They both died in my mom's house. Yeah. Both. But at different times. But the way she nurtured and cared for them was like, there is no other choice for me.
That's right.
Because we don't see that a lot, though. It's like you might just tuck them off to a nursing home.
Sure.
But the nurturing and the caring of our parents is so important to our legacies.
And it's also important that you got to witness that. You know, my parents are ancestors as well. My mom's been an ancestor. My dad's been an ancestor since I was 1.
Wow.
My mom's been an ancestor since I was 31.
Wow.
My stepdad since I was 33. And I got to bear witness to my mother and my stepfather's transition. And the things that I think about now for my mom, when she was in that caretaking role, was who was taking care of her?
Who was taking care of her?
Who was taking care of her? When she was taking care of 2 little girls. Wow. Her mom is not well, so she's taking care of her mom, and she's a nurse. Who was taking care of her? And she was probably perimenopausal.
Oh, absolutely.
Anybody asking her how she doing?
Listen.
Because that's not what happens. So we got to think about this from a meta level and then take it to an individual level. So that intergenerational work is core. It's core to how we talk about it.
Yeah.
It's core to how we invite people into the space. It's core to the storytelling that we do. And it's also core because younger people who experience menopause, people who are under 40, under 30, because they've had cervical cancer, or they've had ovarian cancer, or they've had ovarian insufficiency, or they've had gender-affirming surgery to be more in alignment with their gender identity and had a hysterectomy. We don't talk about those folk. We interviewed a young person on the podcast last year. His name is Austin Smith. Austin is now 30, but he had a full hysterectomy when he was 28 and had complications from the surgery, and also was thrown into medical menopause. And his care team was basically like, well, you good though, right? Because you had the surgery you wanted to have. Like, this is, we are helping you be more fully who you want to be. It's like, yeah, but you're leaving pieces of information out that are a part of this journey.
Right.
So, it's important for us to remember that any ecosystem, any landscape, there are folk who are left at the margins. So those of us who are about justice and liberation work, we center those folk from the who are left at the margins to the center. So we unapologetically do that with intergenerational work. And then the last thing is partnership. It's really critical for us to partner with folk because we know we don't know everything. We don't know everything. We don't do everything. We don't
know everything.
We don't want to know everything, and we don't want to do it. No, we don't want to do everything.
Right.
And so partnering with organizations that do research, partnering with organizations that do more explicit reproductive justice work, though I do reproductive justice work, partnering with organizations that do health equity work. Like we need these partnerships because then we can also influence as a thought partner intersectional research, policy, advocacy, right? And so that's really important for how our voices are included in that, but also how we influence what's being kind of orchestrated or conjured. You know, so that's kind of like, you know, where we are. We have to think about this, and I'm sure you think about this with your SEL work, especially your Black SEL work. We have never felt at home inside of our bodies necessarily in this country because we've always been told that we're a problem.
We just talked about this.
Since our arrival here, our humanity has been at question. Our personhood has been invisibilized. And so when you think about how our identity is racialized, you got to think about gender too. Black women, from the beginning of our experience here, ownership of our bodies, our own bodily autonomy, our own body sovereignty. We've been grabbing it back out of the hands of people constantly. Who are constantly telling us, you're not human. You're not feeling pain. This is not happening for you. You know, women are twice as likely to experience mental health issues, right? But we're like 50% less likely to be diagnosed properly.
Wow.
Black women are 50% less likely to be diagnosed properly for a mental health issue.
Wow.
Right. Black women are 3 times more likely to die during labor and delivery.
Listen, we got to talk about this. Okay. So you mentioned something that was so important about just the collaboration and the partnership and all those things. But, you know, I'm sitting here listening to everything you're saying, and I'm highlighting in my mind all these social and emotional skills that you and people in this community have to go through in order to uplift others. And so there, I want to just touch on like what your regimen is, because it's so like empowering to hear about. And we use the term as a strong Black woman. I don't know how you feel about that, because you know, sometimes we strong, but sometimes we looked at as strong. But are we really? You know, it's complicated, right? And you as this Black woman activist and really fighting for women's justice and education justice and educating us, we first of all thank you, because I like when you talk about reproductive systems and all that, I know that it is still a part of, like, when we say social responsibility, I'm like, this is my social responsibility to teach people SEL, but it's also my social responsibility to take care of my own body.
That's right. That's right.
And you know, as Black women, we don't think about that as our social responsibility.
And I think it's important for us to start where a person is. Like, I'm not going to, you know, let me back up. I know that I will never, ever, ever be able to repay or thank the people who trained me up, my first political homes, to help me understand what popular education is, and to help me understand pedagogy of the oppressed, right? How do you use different dialogical tools to help people tell their story to each other first, right? We're just gonna do some storytelling.
And we good for the storytelling, the Black
Tell me your story, I'm gonna tell you my story. Then we see where our stories connect, where they diverge, how they resonate, how you turn me on to something I never heard of before. Before we address any larger system, before we address any larger issue, barrier, or challenge, grounded in story first, grounded in culture first, right? So I don't start off any of our conversations, any of our interviews, any of our events by hitting people in the head with these meta things. That's not necessary, right? The same way that, you know, SEL wraps itself around work, and you can see it because that's your work, right? So you're listening to a person talk about what they're doing and how they're doing it. You're like, oh, that's SEL. That's what that is. I feel the same way when someone's talking about what they're doing. I'm like, oh, this person's a cultural organizer, or this person, you know, you're doing racial justice work, you know. But you have to give that person the space that they need to own their own narrative and to share their narrative with other people, right? But the first person you get to tell your own story to is yourself. Right?
Come on.
So that felt really important to me, and my ability to be able to wrap around these menopause journeys, these aging journeys, reproductive justice as a framework, so people understand. Reproductive justice was started in 1994 by 9 Black women. Wow. You understand? 9 Black women who get consistently invisibilized when we talk about bodily autonomy, when we talk about access to reproductive health, when we talk about contraceptives, when we talk about pregnant people and the maternal mortality rates of Black folk. Consistently invisibilized. We always elevate these 9 women because there are the founding mothers who said, if we do not center the stories of Black folk and marginalized folk in this movement space, we will consistently be invisibilized and our needs will not be met.
They won't be met.
They will not be met.
So tell me just like a brief 1 minute over about reproductive.
Sure.
What is the main things we need to know?
So here's a real easy soundbite. Reproductive justice is the ability of an individual to determine when, how, and if they're going to have children, under what circumstances they want to have these children, and to raise these children in a community and society that is free of violence. And that they are safe, right? So that's why there's a lot of connective tissue between reproductive justice and environmental justice and climate justice, right? Voting rights, right? Because I get to decide if and when I'm going to have a child and under what conditions I'm going to have that child. And that I have the ability to raise that child in a community where I'm safe, my child is safe, and we can live free. That's what reproductive justice is. It's based on a human rights framework from the United Nations.
So, now that I am 35, I'm older, I'm, engaged, and, we're about to get married, and it's just such an exciting time in my life, right? Thank you. And it's such an exciting time. But now I have all these thoughts that never were.
Sure.
Like, I don't even know where they were, because I never thought about kids.
They hadn't materialized.
They never materialized.
Yeah.
So, I never thought about kids. I was just the hungry Black woman just going in, just impacting the world, doing what I do. And now I'm in a place that I'm like, oh, wow, I am thinking about kids. Sure. I'm thinking about, what does that look like? I'm also thinking about how am I going to balance this world and how am I going to pour into and have the time. And, it's just a lot of anxiety that comes with that. If I can be transparent, what would you say to the 35-year-old woman? Because even, and that's the 35-year-old you too, because there's a lot of pressure in today's society with, oh, you better have some kids now because you better freeze your eggs and you better do this.
It's a lot of pressure.
It's a lot of pressure.
And not everybody wants to be a parent. Or not everybody can. Or they can't in a way that is biological. Right. If you want a child, if you want to have a child, if you want to parent a child, you can figure out the way to do that in a way that's meaningful and makes sense for you and your family, right? So I'm very clear about that. If I were going to have a conversation with my 35-year-old self, I think the funny thing of that is that at 35, I had been a mom for 10 years.
Wow, okay.
I had my first son when I was 25, and I had my youngest son when I was 41.
Wow, come on, 41.
So the difference in those experiences is that when you don't know something, you don't know it. You can study things, you can know things intellectually, but it's different when you're in the physical, tactile moment of that thing. Whether that's your artistry, whether that's education and teaching, whether that's birthing, whether that's bearing witness to someone transition and take their last breath. You think you know what it is intellectually until you're there. Wow. And you're watching this human being come into the world or watching a human being leave this world. It's a completely different energy. It's a completely different experience. And so if I were going to say anything to myself at 35, because I was a single mom at 35, I was dating my ex-husband at the time. We had not gotten married. I wasn't sure if we were going to get married. I probably would say to myself, it's okay not to know everything. It's okay to let yourself figure things out. And it's also okay to let somebody take good care of you.
Ooh, come on.
Yeah.
Because that good care feels good
that
when
good
you
care is necessary.
When you all here independent and,
It's necessary. And I also think quite often about my mom, and I wonder if she had been taken better care of after my parents' divorce, and I don't think that care necessarily had to come from a partner, but just generally speaking, would she have lived longer? My mother had autoimmune disease that she ultimately transitioned because of, called sarcoidosis, and it impacted her lungs. Wow. And so I often wonder if my mother had been able to either receive, allow,
resources,
support from friends, from family, would that have made a difference in how long she would have lived? And I think that she gives me a lot of messages and information from the ancestor realm now, telling me, take care of yourself. You're more than somebody's mom.
Wow.
You're more than someone's sister. You're more than someone's ex-wife. You're more than someone's friend.
Come on.
You belong to you first. So whatever decisions that we get to make about our bodies, we ultimately first have to decide, well, what is it that I actually want? Do I want this? And then you get to decide, well, who are going to be my co-conspirators? Who are going to be my champions? Who's going to help me with that? And that's how we ended up in this menopause space. It was like, well, who are going to be the co-conspirators, champions, and supporters of folk who are navigating menopause?
Wow.
Everybody deserves that.
Everybody deserves that.
Of course.
You know, and you brought up something that was so good, which makes me really think about the most important competency in social emotional learning is self-awareness.
Yes.
Right? If we do not know ourselves, if we cannot sit down and accurately perceive,
That's right.
you know,
That's
our,
right.
our perceptions
That's
of who
right.
we are,
That's right.
and have a tribe to say, you know, if I say, I take care of my body, but
That's
then
right.
try to say, no,
I don't know if you do. And you need that reflector. You need that mirror. But self-awareness, this is such an important part of this conversation. I'm so glad you brought this up. Self-awareness for Black folk cannot be divorced from culture or history.
Ooh.
It cannot.
Ooh.
I don't know how we can move in the world with a level of self-awareness about who we are right now in this current moment if we don't have a grounding in culture and history.
Say that again. Self-awareness for Black folk
cannot be divorced from culture or history.
We're gonna be quoting this.
It can't. It can't. So how you kind of like, you know, there's a book by Paula Giddings called When and Where I Enter. And it talks about Black women in social justice movement spaces, starting from the suffrage movement on through the civil rights movement. And Paula Giddings taught it at Duke. She's an amazing sister, scholar, brilliant. And the When and Where I Enter is based off of Anna Julia Cooper quote, where she says, when and where I enter, the race enters with me.
Ooh.
When and where I enter, the race enters with me. So when
Wow.
and where I enter in my self-awareness, who I am as a Black Southern person enters with me. And my understanding of my history, my history here in North Carolina, our history globally, diasporically,
Yes.
my understanding of the culture and what it means to be culturally Black, what it means to be culturally Southern.
It means to be culturally Black.
This is really important.
It's real.
And so that allows you then, as you're trying to figure out, well, what does my family look like?
Yeah.
What does happiness look like?
Yeah.
What does my work look like?
Yeah.
What does my my offering to my community look like?
Yeah.
That becomes context.
Yeah.
And we don't do things out of context. We just sometimes forget the context or we ignore the context. But I think this is very important.
Wow. And you know, it's a piece of a skill that lies underneath self-awareness is self-efficacy. How are we evaluating our performance every day?
Right.
And so when we think of Black women, and I'm just going to use me for instance, you know, I do all these things and I'm so busy. And I was talking about this with my hair, but now I'm talking about this with my body. Because I'm like, am I allotting enough time in my schedule to take care of my body? To identify what is happening, how do I feel? Not just my emotions and my thoughts and my act, but what am I feeling in my body? Where is the stress living?
Where does it live?
Because sometimes I feel like it's like it right here. Like you know how people say stress lives in places?
It does.
I feel like it's in my back.
Your body is always giving you information. First of all, our bodies are spectacular.
Spectacular.
They're amazing. And they're always talking to us. Always. Somebody asked me, what does your menopausal body tell you? My menopausal body tells me that I have shape-shifted over my life. And that the shape I currently have is not the shape I had when I was 40. It wasn't the shape I had at 30, 25, 15, 2, right? Like you shapeshift. And there are things that I used to be able to do and I can't do no more.
And you got to be okay with that.
It's fine.
You know, because it's hard.
But there are also things I can do now that I couldn't do before.
Yes.
Right? This body keeps changing and she keeps talking to me. She's like, this is the type of rest you need, Omi. These are the types of foods you can eat and enjoy. These are the types of foods you can eat and enjoy, but it's going to get you later.
See, I think I'm in a space right now where my body is changing. And I think this is like the perfect time for this conversation.
Reboot.
I need a reboot because even the foods I'm eating,
Sure.
you know, I just realized I got allergies the other day.
Of course.
I'm over here like, what is going on? I'm having a headache.
Exactly.
I'm over here like just out here with sinuses, you know, and I'm like, I never had allergies.
Sure.
So I was like, I had to really go talk to someone to say, these are my effects. Like, and I knew it wasn't like, I'm not sick. I don't feel sick.
But there's something else going on. And it's also our environment. So it's not only that we're changing, but this climate justice thing is a big, big thing in our communities, right? In rural communities and urban communities. And you're thinking about, well, what are the toxins that are in the air or in the food or in the water, and like how that then presents itself as allergies or autoimmune issues, right? And you're right. Our body talks to us in different places where you're holding stress, where you're holding tenderness that needs some attention, where you feel strong. Like today, I feel very, very strong in my thighs. Right? But I'm feeling a little bit of tension in my lower back because I've been like working on some applications for some stuff and writing some stuff and writing some articles, and I've been not sitting well. And so
you're like, it's just amazing how you're like totally telling me self-aware, because you're telling me exactly about your body, yourself, and that is a phenomenal practice to have mastered, because then you know that like when you walk into spaces, you are confident in everything that you're in, you're in your being, and I think for a Black woman that we have to get to that mastery.
We have to get, and I think that the mastery also is our ability in that self-awareness or that body attunement or somatics, because that's what we're talking about. Like you're tapping in somatically to your body. When you are off kilter, when you are not well, when you don't know what's going on, when you've made a mistake that you need to account for.
Come on.
Like the mastery of that. Mastery is not synonymous with perfection, right? So like if I have a praxis, if I have an ethos, that's my commitment. I'm not trying to be perfect. I'm committed, right? I'm committed to the thing I'm doing. I'm committed to my values. I'm committed to how I would like to live this life. Am I good at it every day? No. Do I make mistakes? Absolutely. Do I have folk who are mirrors for me who can say, "What's going on, sis?"
Because they know you.
Because I got my own little conditioned tendencies where I can, hunker down and do my thing, and I have friends who will pull me. What you doing?
That tribe.
My tribe.
Community.
I hadn't talked to you. I need to lay my eyes on you. That's one of the things I love about Black SEL. I need to lay my eyes on you. And we ain't even got to do it in person. I can FaceTime you. I can Zoom you. But let me check in, because I need to look in your face.
Because every "how are you?" and you say good ain't good.
Right.
You know, we so conditioned.
We are conditioned
to be like, "Oh, I'm good."
I'm good.
But what's your good?
Like, what does that mean?
What does that even mean?
Or every tired ain't tired.
Come on.
Because what I learned in my own mental health journey, and I have journeyed with depression, I have journeyed with anxiety, is that tired was a code word for me for something else. And what my therapist did for me was help me unpack, what does tired mean? And I hear a lot of menopausal Black women saying, "Girl, I'm just tired." I'm like, are you emotionally fatigued? Are you physically tired? Are you not sleeping? Is it insomnia? Are you tired of the whole situation? Are folk getting on your nerves at work? Your kids getting on your nerves? What is tired?
What is tired?
Let's unpack that. And to unpack that without shame or judgment.
So good. Okay, so I wanna ask you some things, because we have in our Black communities with women, we have like the fibroids happening, right? We have like all these things that we don't talk about it as much, and we know it's there and it's coming out, more and more each day. But one of the things I want to talk about is one of the first signs of menopause, and then when do you get it? Because you said something about if you have like cervical cancer, like then you can get it earlier. But what is the typical average first sign?
All right, so I'm gonna blow your mind, and I'm gonna tell you what menopause actually is, and then we're gonna talk about kind of like how it happens. First of all, menopause literally is when you have not had your menstrual cycle for 365 consecutive days. And it is also a shifting in your estrogen and progesterone hormones. If those things don't happen, you could have not had a cycle for 8 months and be like, "Oh, I'm menopausal.
Yep.
And your period comes back the next day.
Okay.
Like I have girlfriends now, you know, I'm about to be 56
Yeah.
and we have girlfriends who are like, girl, you know, I ain't had a period for 10 months and then it showed up today. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Because you got to hit the restart button when it comes back. So that's what menopause, the literal translation of that menopause is the ceasing of your menstrual cycle. 1 full calendar year.
Menopause.
1 full calendar year, yeah. And your estrogen and progesterone. And also your hormone levels continue to shift throughout your lifetime. And your hormones bathe everything. Estrogen bathes your hair.
Wow.
Your eyes.
Wow.
Teeth.
Wow.
Your endocrine system.
Wow.
Your heart. Your reproductive system. All of this. So when there are any shifts in your hormones, everything is transformed.
Yeah.
Everything is impacted.
Yeah.
So here's the other piece of that. There's a pregame. So I didn't know there was a menopause pregame until at 40 I was pregnant and we had a miscarriage. And that is when my OBGYN said to me, well, this is not uncommon for perimenopausal people. And I was like, what is perimenopause? Like, this is a whole, what are you talking about? And she's like, oh, menopause is on a spectrum. There is a peri period, which is a pre-menopause period that can happen as early as your late 30s or as late or in a timely manner in your late 40s, early 50s.
What? You are enlightening me right now.
So I want to tell you that. Wow. And then you've got the menopause where you haven't had a cycle. Yep. So I'm postmenopausal for almost 10 years.
Wow.
Right.
And how old are you? Do you mind?
55.
55.
Yeah.
So you're postmenopausal.
Yep.
So your menopause.
I haven't had a menstrual cycle since 2013.
Wow. So what's that, 45?
Yes, 45.
Wow.
I know.
So that's early.
They consider that early. I consider that early too.
Yeah.
But here's another thing that a lot of research is talking about. There's a study, it's called the SWAN study. The SWAN study is the largest, longest, oldest longitudinal study of women's health.
Wow.
And inside that study, they talk about menopause and aging. And inside of that menopause and aging, they talk about the fact that Black women and Hispanic women experience menopause earlier.
Wow.
They have more intense symptoms, and it lasts longer.
So like, cause you know, I wonder all the time, do like as Black women's symptoms like with cramps,
Sure,
like worse,
sure,
than any other nationality. Like I always wonder, cause I feel like we always just go through something a little.
I feel like there's a combination of things, and I don't know this to be true because I'm not a researcher and I'm not a doctor. But I do know that there's a causality that you cannot ignore around the environment that people are living in.
Yes.
And we know that cortisol is a real thing.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So if I'm living in an environment where how I move in the world with my identity is a Black woman, a Black Southern woman who's over 50, and all these things, there are ways in which I move in the world where I can lean into that and that's held and supported. And there are ways where that's going to have people try to erase me, oppress me, or harm me, right?
Because they'll try it real quick.
Right. So this cortisol, what we have learned about science, good science tells you that an elevated cortisol level that stays elevated is not healthy because it's not sustainable. Cortisol, just like your amygdala, right? Once again, our bodies are brilliant.
Right.
And this is where I nerd out. We were trying to stay alive. We were trying not to be eaten by wild animals.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So like our brains, our guts, the way that adrenaline and cortisol works really was made to keep us alive.
Wow.
You encounter a situation that is traumatic or potentially violent. Your body gets activated. Your cortisol levels elevate. Your adrenaline levels elevate. Your amygdala, which is the oldest part of your brain, gives you a fight, flight, fawn response. Because it's keeping you safe. It's supposed to be about your survival. But for Black folk in this country, we have had persistent cortisol and adrenaline levels, which has transformed the way we make decisions. It has impacted our bodies, our health outcomes. Is our adrenal glands, our cardiovascular health, insulin levels around diabetes. All of these things are also impacted by cortisol and adrenaline. So I think that it's important for us, again, not to just take things at face value. So when someone says, Omi, why are Black women having a different menopause experience? I like to say, why do you think? Because physiologically, there's nothing different
Yeah.
between us or anybody else.
Yeah.
Right? Because we know race is a construct.
Come on, let's
Right?
talk about that.
But racism is real. White supremacy is real.
And we feel it.
Patriarchy is real. Misogyny is real. Right? And so if I'm experiencing these things in my day-to-day life, whether that is something really catastrophic or just microaggressions that are getting on your nerves,
Absolutely.
it impacts your body.
Internalizing.
So I cannot say with certainty that that doesn't have an impact on fibroids, but I think it should.
Absolutely.
I think it does.
Absolutely.
I can't say that it has an impact on PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, but I'm pretty sure it probably does, or endometriosis. And these are things that Black women tend to have really challenging physiological experiences with. We also know now that there's a connection potentially between the lye that's in relaxers and fibroids and endometriosis.
This is why you see me natural, ladies and gentlemen, for real. And because I was like,
we're learning.
We're learning.
We're
And
learning.
I was having some pain like in my head, and I like going back in my head, and I'm like, I need to figure out what's going on, take a break, and understand.
Sure.
And I've been in the natural community already, but it was like a different
Sure.
for me at 35.
Sure.
Like it wasn't just to feel liberated.
Absolutely.
Right? But to really understand like what is really going on with my body.
Absolutely.
Including my hair.
Absolutely.
So this is so good. One of the things I want to touch on is, so, you know, we talked about when menopause can come, and like, give me one first sign that someone's like experiencing.
I'll give some typical signs, because there's several.
Okay.
There's several.
Okay.
Like, there are over 80 physical possibilities. Literally. Yeah. But the ones that are most commonly known are called vasomotor symptoms. VASOMOTOR, vasomotor. And the things that live inside of that are like hot flashes. Night sweats.
Okay.
Insomnia, brain fog or cognition differences.
Wow.
Issues around depth perception, like bumping into stuff, or forgetfulness. Where you like like my running joke with my youngest son. He's like, "Did you take the keys out the front door?" I leave my keys in the front door all the time. I also put them in the refrigerator. So he'll be like, I'm like, thank you.
That's probably that juice.
Thank you. I was getting some kombucha. Right. Anyway, so these are typical things. Also, as we age, and because our hormones are shifting, we may see weight gain, and then the weight gain shifts, like where weight was deposited before you were in menopause might have been in your thighs and in your hips and your buttocks, and then you end up with visceral fat in your belly. So your body composition changes, right?
I think I'm going through that now. I'm like, my menopause, my metabolism does slow down.
And your metabolism shifts and changes, but that doesn't mean that you are being held hostage to any of these things, right? And so one of the things that was very important for me to pay attention to was my nutrition and my diet. And I don't mean dieting. I mean, what was I eating? And what was my body telling me about what I was eating, right? So I know that I can't do a lot of caffeine.
Oh, wow.
And I also know that I love spicy foods,
me
but
too.
too spicy, too spicy too often is not a good thing.
Oh, I know I'm gonna have to let it go. Somebody told me that the other day. I love spicy food.
Now, you can enjoy everything in moderation, in my opinion.
I know.
Because we're not body shaming anybody, and we're making sure that you should be able to eat what you want to eat, being clear about what you're eating and how it impacts your body and your health.
Yep, absolutely. So, and making the responsible decision. Because if you
know. You can't unring a bell.
You can't.
You can't unring a bell.
And I think in our community, we were always taught that a responsible decision was common sense. But it's actually a skill.
It is.
And so how we look at making responsible decisions to our own bodies,
that's right.
It is so crucial.
And, personal responsibility, I sometimes cringe when I hear that because I feel like it doesn't always, sometimes it does, but doesn't always take into context that person's true realities, the truisms that they're living in every day. And so we say to people, it's just a simple case of, nutrition and diet. Well, that's easy for me to say because I am not food insecure. I don't live in a food desert.
Right.
So it's very easy for me to say, I shifted the way I eat. I shifted the things that I eat because I didn't have to worry about being able to afford the food I eat.
Right.
or being able to get in my car and drive to the grocery store that has the food I want to eat.
Right.
I wasn't taking public transportation. I wasn't standing in line trying to figure out, do I have enough money to cover these groceries?
Right.
So I'm going to make a decision that makes the most sense for the budget that I have.
And so I'm gonna get this. I'm gonna fry some chicken. I'm gonna do all this.
Hook it up.
I'm gonna hook it up.
I'm gonna hook it up
because it's what I have.
Listen, and this is what we do. This is how we have survived.
Yes.
So I will never, ever, ever shame somebody for something like that.
Absolutely.
And I also think that we have a responsibility as a community to address these systems that make it hard or challenging or as a barrier for somebody to be able to change the way they eat.
You know, and that, wow, because I mean, when we talk about like the things that I'm advocating for on the SEL side, this, first of all, there's so much more that we can be advocating for, but you're absolutely right. We cannot push to like, you have to eat this and you have to diet this, when a lot of our Black people are in survival mode.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And we talked about earlier in an early episode, I was talking about an article I read called Poverty Taxes the Brain, and how when we're living in poverty, our brain is like, it literally is in trauma. It's like, it's not functioning well.
And when you are in sustained trauma, your brain synapses get truncated. They get damaged. But here's a beautiful thing about your brain synapses. When you disrupt that trauma, it can regenerate, right? Which is why we have to be clear. Like, there is so much connective tissue between what we're experiencing externally and internally, right? And how we can transform and shapeshift.
And
shapeshift into a healthier new version of ourselves.
Yes, this is so good. Yeah. So like, what are some, I know we talked about what is menopause and what does it look like, what are the first signs of it, and like just understanding our bodies and what it looks like, but what are some natural remedies or something that you could give to the audience?
You know, so the first thing again is like what you eat. So, you know, figuring out the right combination of foods that work for your body. This is a very individualized experience. So what you eat and what I eat will affect us both differently. Right? So I think nutrition and what your diet looks like on a daily basis is the first line of defense. I think the second line of defense is how you are able to move your body, whether that's walking or yoga or running or whatever, dancing, you know, whatever the case may be, moving your body and oxygenating your body and getting out in the sun and getting, a lot of Black folk have vitamin D deficiencies. So like, that has an impact on your immune system and all the things. And so thinking about how you're moving your body, like one of my movement practice is yoga. I love yoga. I just, it is giving me what I need to feel strong and flexible, and it also centers me, and I adore the practice. And I am not good at it all the time. Like, there are times I feel like I'm a toddler on that mat. I'm like, you look like you're 2 years old today. What is going on with you?
But it feels good.
It feels good, and I laugh. And there are times where I'm on my mat and I'm just crying because my body needs the release. But moving your body and finding out what movement looks good for you, what works for you, and just committing to moving your body. I think other things that can be helpful is there are herbal remedies like black cohosh and wild yam and things like that. And there are some over-the-counter remedies that are supportive. And then if that doesn't work, you can also talk to your healthcare provider around hormone replacement therapy to see if that works for you. Not everybody can do hormone replacement therapy. So it is not cookie cutter. It's not one size fits all. It really depends on the person, who they are, what their body needs, and also the context of who they are culturally, politically, and all those things. I say that menopause is three things. It's physical, cultural, and political. Right? So we remember those three things, and we're thinking about a person's menopause journey, they should be able to address it in those three areas.
Wow. So give me a quick, how would they address it politically?
So politically,
because this is good.
Yes. So politically, it's kind of like what we do around our advocacy work, right? So a good example of politically is workplace policy.
Ooh.
A lot of workplace policies for women and women-identified people have focused on, and rightly so, people who are pregnant or parenting, right? So it's like, how do we make sure that we have an accepting, open, flexible, diverse work environment where if people decide that they want to start a family, that they can take care of themselves while they're pregnant, or they can have time off. So all the work that's been done around maternity leave and FMLA and all the work that's been done to create safe spaces in workplaces for people to be able to lactate and to be able to express their milk.
Absolutely.
So much work has happened around that. Imagine the difference between me being in the workplace 6 weeks after I had my first son, and I'm breastfeeding and I'm taking stuff to work, and people are just like, do what you need to do, take care of yourself. Fast forward to me being menopausal and I'm having a hot flash. Nobody care you having a hot flash.
And they don't really see it.
They don't see it. They
don't
just
know
experience you as being contrite. They experience you as being cranky, moody. Mean.
Oh, and nobody wants an aggressive black woman.
Nobody want an older,
angry,
a black woman who smells good but is mean. They're like, well, she smells so good. Why is she so hateful?
Why is she so hateful? Right. Wow.
So there's workplace policy to take in consideration the work needs of aging and menopausal people. Flexible schedules, FMLA for menopause. Like, there should be those policies in place. That's why I say it's political.
That's good. Yeah. Because you are typically someone over the age of 60 is retired.
Potentially.
And
many perimenopausal people who are experiencing these hot flashes, night sweats, moods are in their 40s.
That's what I'm saying. So when you think about me typically not knowing anything about menopause, when I think about menopause, I'm like, oh, that's in your 60s, but then you have these women that are in their 40s that are in their primes, in their careers, handling their business, but going through this.
Maybe not in their prime, maybe struggling to make ends meet. Can you imagine being underpaid, working an hourly job, working in a convenience store or working in a fast food restaurant, and you having hot flashes? You can't remember if you locked the freezer or didn't lock the freezer. Your coworkers are giving you hell. And you're like, I'm making $10 an hour.
And I'm sitting here with my body feeling like this.
In the bathroom crying, trying to get myself together so I can go back out here. Customers are being rude and nasty.
Wow.
Right?
And this is also a piece that's so good for us as black people, black women. We need to have empathy. We need to really understand our social awareness skills.
That's right.
That when we go into places where we do see a grandma, or we do see a ma'am, someone we're called, recognize.
That's right.
Like, be aware, perspective take.
That's right.
Before you come up in there with an attitude at the counter at CVS. You know what I'm saying? Or before you just out at a restaurant, practice these skills.
That's one of my favorite things to do is to interact with older
Yes, me too.
Oh, I love that.
And listen, I'm a elder. Go and lay at my elder feet. I was literally, when my grandparents were alive, I was the one. I literally moved here. This is how I moved to North Carolina because my parents lived in Sanford, North Carolina. I was in Atlanta at the time, and my grandmother got sick, and I was the only entrepreneur in my immediate family. And I said, I'm going to move and help take care of her. My mom was working. She worked from home, but she worked upstairs, so she was trying to multitask. And I was able to do that for both of my grandparents because of my flexible work schedule.
Right.
So I would come down. I literally made a schedule just to come and take care of them and change my grandmother. I would change her, would walk her to the bathroom, all of that. And I realized how important it was to be around elders and to just lean into the wisdom.
Sure.
And so I am that way. Whenever I see, someone that I know is my elder, I want to engage. I want to talk to you. I want to get to know you, even if it's for 5 minutes of your time. I want to slow my life down.
That's right.
To
because we can do
acknowledge.
That.
We can do that.
There's no skin off your back to be kind. It's no skin off your back, even if you're having a rough day. A simple, how you doing?
Yeah.
All right. I hope you have a good day.
Yeah, we had a woman yesterday. We were at Juju eating, and a woman came up to me because they forgot my soup. I had some curry soup. It was so good. Some curry soup before it was my appetizer. And so they brought my main course, and I said, excuse me, I had the soup, I never got it. And they're like, oh my gosh. So, they said, we're going to bring this back. And this older woman came to me, and she said, listen, baby. She said, the way you responded to us, we're going to take this soup off because we don't even get responses like that. Sure. In this area, people are like, no, I ordered this. It's just and I'm just like, but when you think about it though, when you are settled in your own spirit,
that's right.
when you're happy with what you do,
Sure.
you know, it really takes a lot of you.
Yes.
To reflect out.
It takes a lot of effort, I think, to be me.
It takes a lot of effort.
I think it takes a lot of effort to be me. And one of my favorite things to do at the bank is if I see an older sister in the bank and she done got dressed to go to the bank.
Yeah.
I like to flirt. I'm like, you looking cute. Where are
looking
you going?
right.
Okay, man.
Right.
Don't hurt nobody.
Don't hurt
That's my
nobody.
favorite thing
Listen,
to do.
It's
I love it.
It's the affirmations for
I love
me,
it.
right?
I love it.
So we're going to wrap up, but I just do have one more. I want to talk about the self-esteem affected during the stage of menopause.
Yeah.
You know, if you can just address or encourage
Yeah.
some Black women that are going through this right now, or maybe in the early stages, or just feeling the difference in the body.
Sure.
You know, what can you tell them to help their self-esteem?
Yeah. You know, the first thing I want to say is that if somebody is beginning their journey and because I think a lot of people start to question, am I perimenopausal? Because they start to notice things, right? The first thing I want to say to folk is that you are the expert of your own body. You are the expert. So Kristen is the expert of Kristen's body.
Wow.
Omi is the expert of Omi's body. You are the expert of your body.
Yes.
So once you start listening more to what your body is telling you, I always am grateful for my girlfriends because we talk about everything.
Yes, I love it.
Everything. So if I'm experiencing something physically, the first place I take it are to my trusted intimates.
Come on.
That's what I call my folk, my close folk.
Trusted intimates.
I'm social with a whole lot of people. I'm very gregarious and outgoing, but my intimates, the people who I can take the mask, everything. I'm like, this is going on. Is this happening with you too? The query, the back and forth, the question, you know, to ground truth what's happening with you, with people you trust.
I love that.
Right?
I love that.
And then, you know, be able to have a conversation with your healthcare provider.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things to tell people is you deserve exquisite care. Right? So if you have insurance and you've been going to a physician and you're noticing something different, the first thing you do when you go into the doctor's office is say, listen, I have 3 things that I want to talk to you about today. Do you have time to talk to me before we do anything else? And if they say, oh, it's kind of tight today, you say, okay, can we schedule a follow-up? Because I need to talk to you.
And I need information. Don't just go, because you know the doctor
Don't
just
be dismissive.
Don't be dismissive.
So, and there are good doctors out there. I am so grateful for Avis Artist.
Is that your doctor?
She was my doctor. She's retired.
Oh man, I was gonna say, I need a good one.
She's retired. I see Dr. Choi now, and I love Dr. Choi as well. But I've been going to Harrison Smith, OBGYN, with all the other Black folk.
Okay, I'm gonna check them out because I need one. For real.
And she was amazing.
Okay.
And I met Avis when I was 31.
Okay.
I met her right after my mom passed away. And the very first appointment I had with her, she was like, so let's talk. I said, okay. She said, tell me about yourself.
Wow.
And I just started crying, and I was just like, my mom died. And I need you to check me for this. She said, okay. She said, I'm sensing there's a lot of anxiety that you're having right now.
Yeah.
She said, let's just take it one step at a time.
Wow.
And she really saw me. And I'm grateful for that.
Wow.
The same thing when I had the miscarriage.
Yeah.
And then she delivered my son, my youngest son. I just am grateful for that relationship.
Yeah.
I'm grateful for the relationship with my therapist.
Yeah.
I'm grateful for the relationship with my primary care physician. Because I know when I sit on that table, I can say, I need to talk to you for a second.
Yep. And they're gonna listen.
And they're gonna say, okay. Because they know I'm gonna look stuff up. I said, I don't diagose myself, but I will look something up. Right? And my primary care physician, he says, you do social justice, I do medicine. I said, yes. I said, that's why I bring you questions.
Right. That's why I need information.
Right. Because I expect you to give me the information.
Right.
If you are not getting the support you need from your healthcare providers and you can leave, vote with your feet.
Y'all heard that?
Don't stay. And ask for references.
Yes.
Ask for recommendations. Talk to other people. Who's a good primary care physician? Who's a good OBGYN? Who's a good therapist? Put the information out there. Unfortunately, if you can't leave, because we know everybody doesn't have flexibility with their insurance, or they might be underinsured, bring somebody with you.
Yep.
My younger sister takes me with her to her doctor's appointments.
I love that.
She's like, this is my older sister. And I'm always like,
Yep.
hi.
Let's talk.
And I'm just sitting there listening. And then when the doctor says whatever, because my sister has really, really bad asthma, and the pulmonologist will say, this is what's going on, blah, blah, blah. And then I'll look at my sister and I say, did you understand what he said? And she said, not really. And then I said, well,
let's break it down again.
Let's break that down again.
Yeah, I love that.
Now, my sister doesn't have any cognitive issues. My sister is 54 years old.
Yeah.
But she gets intimidated.
Absolutely. As so many Black women.
So many people do. And then what we do is to say, well, I'm going to bear it.
Yep. Or thank you so much. You don't want to feel like.
So you're like, it's fine. It's fine. It's also not a real thing. It's fine. We have normalized being a little tired.
Wow.
We have normalized being a little bit in pain. We have normalized being a little fatigued. And we need to stop normalizing that.
Wow.
Because your body is telling you something.
You know, I've never looked at it this way. And you guys are like everybody has just been blessing me because I've never looked at SEL from a lens of having or being in relationship with your body. And so like just as a relationship skill, right? You just said something about listening to your body. Like when I think of relationship skills, I'm like, I am a good friend because I'm actively listening. But am I actively listening to my body?
Are you listening to yourself?
Am I listening to myself?
Are you listening to the internal narratives that are not healthy and interrogating those?
So good.
So that way you can be like, that's not actually true. That's an old hurt.
Yeah.
Or that's not even mine.
That's not even mine to carry.
That's not even mine
I'm
to
carrying. We
carry.
talk about this invisible backpack that we carry with all these emotions.
Yes.
And we're like, what emotion am I carrying today? But then you realize you might be carrying other people's emotions, and it's heavy.
I don't want your backpack.
I don't want
I got my
your
own
backpack.
And there's what's the quote, we wear the mask that grins and lies, right? There are some masks that we will likely, as Black folk, keep close because we live in this country. It's smart. It's wise to keep that mask because it keeps you safe.
Wow.
But there are other masks that you may have constructed or put to use over your lifetime that I don't know about because you needed that mask, but it might not be healthy.
Wow.
And so what you get to do is thank your younger self, not shame her or embarrass her and be like, young Kristen, you was trying to keep us safe. Girl, look at you trying to make sure we were safe. Thank you.
Wow.
I love you.
Wow.
But we safe now. So we're going to put this mask down because we don't need it anymore.
No.
And we're going to go this way. And you get to come with me.
Wow.
I'm not banishing you or putting you in a box or in the bottom of a well. You get to come with. Let's go. All versions at any age get to come with.
This is so good, y'all. I know you guys got something from this. All the gems that Miss Omisade just dropped has like blessed my soul, and rejuvenated me in my spirit. And it's just allowing me to I'm gonna have to digest this episode and watch it over and over again because it really speaks to my body, right? And it speaks to my soul, but as just understanding my body more and this was the perfect episode for my age. Sure. Because as 35, I feel like I've hit an age where I am changing and I don't know what to do with that change. And it's been such a interesting space to be. I think that's the right, interesting, because it hasn't been like oh my God, I'm changing. I'm like, oh, I'm changing.
Right.
I like it,
right.
But it's just interesting because it's like this has never happened before.
Sure.
And so if you are dealing with menopause or you feel like you're in your first stage of menopause, I want you to make sure that you connect with Omi. I want you to tell them every platform that they can connect with
Absolutely. You can go to our website, www.blackgirlsguidetosurvivingmenopause.com. You can follow us on Instagram. My personal handle is Omisade Bernie Scott.
Yes.
Or Black Girls Guide to Menopause.
Yes.
You can also follow us on Facebook, Black Girls Guide to Surviving Menopause. You can listen to the podcast anywhere you listen to it. Spotify, Apple. We have 3 zines that we've published. You can access them on our link tree. Yep. So just check us out.
And I want to make sure that we link like your stuff on our site so that people that come and visit our site will have a whole thing that they can just click and go to your site. I thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
This is Black SEL.
Blackity black.
Blackity black.
I love that.
Thank you so much, and we are out. Thank you. Oh.